Hello and welcome to Book Talk. Today I'm delighted to be joined by the poet, performer and educator Leanne Moden. She's an award-winning writer, a slam-winning performer and a fledgling theatre maker, and her work has appeared in publications and gallery spaces in the UK, the US, Spain, Iraq and Israel. She also runs Paper Crane Poetry Collective, which in normal time meets at our own Beeston Library. Originally from Norfolk, she now lives in Nottingham, and her new poetry collection, the fabulous Get Over Yourself, which I have here, has just been released. Hi Leanne, welcome to Book Talk.
Hello, nice to see you.
You too, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Keeping on, I think is what everyone's doing at the moment. But yeah, I'm doing okay, thank you.
Great stuff. Yeah, and it does actually seem, poetry, there seems to have been so much interest in poetry since lockdown. So much is being shared online, people have come into it. As a poet, have you seen that? And why do you think we turn to poetry at times like this?
Yeah, absolutely, I have. I've seen people sharing more poetry, people writing more poetry, people being interested in reading more poetry. And I think that's partly a factor of us all, or many of us maybe, having a bit more time to think and to stop and to sort of contemplate our world. And I think particularly poetry is a really good way of sort of articulating emotions and sort of helping us to understand ourselves. I don't think it's a coincidence that at important moments in our lives we do reach for poetry. Think about the weddings that you've been to where people have read poetry. Think about the funerals where poetry has said exactly how you're feeling. I think one of the beautiful things about poetry is that it helps us to tell stories about ourselves and to learn about other people and other cultures as well.
Oh yeah, perfectly said. Which actually, that brings us nicely to this lovely new collection. And this is actually a collection of poetry that's, come out in lockdown. How has that experience been launching in lockdown?
Yeah, challenging, I think, is the polite way of putting it. But yes, so this collection I got together. It's come together over the past 5 years, and it's been about a year in the making, from the point at which your publisher says we're going to do this to the point at which it comes out. It was due to come out in April of this year, and I had a 10-date tour of the UK planned, performances, and obviously by the end of March all of those had been cancelled. All my gigs for the summer had been cancelled. All the festivals that I was hoping to perform at had been, postponed and then cancelled. So it was a really difficult sort of time, because you don't necessarily want to say too much about it, because obviously there are bigger things at stake, and there continue to be bigger things at stake. But yeah, it has been tricky to launch a book during this time, but it's also been a really lovely opportunity to find new ways of working and new ways of reaching out to people. So I've been doing a lot of things like this, doing interviews over video call, getting poetry on podcasts, which has been really lovely, and performing over social media like Facebook Live and Instagram Live, and doing open mics over Zoom. And I went to an open mic, I say went, in inverted commas, went to an open mic in Belfast last week. And that's an opportunity that I never would have been able to do, myself, because it's just not feasible. And I'm seeing people going to slams in New Zealand and going to events in America, because it's all sort of opened up to us now. And so I think it's been tricky, but it's also been like a really lovely sort of learning experience as well.
Yeah, I think we've all found that, and hopefully with the new book and doing it in this way, these virtual interviews, that you will possibly reach new audiences, because it is easier for them to access. So about the actual book, on the back, there's a quote which I love. It says, Leanne's work wraps around your brain like a word hug. It is caring, healing, encouraging, empowering, and full of love. I think that really, I mean, it seems so apt right now that obviously you didn't know what was going to happen when you was writing this collection, but I do think, yeah, we need a word hug right now. And it does, that quote does hit the nail on the head when it comes to the collection. It's nostalgic, it's hopeful, it's romantic, sometimes funny. You've got all those themes there of teenage rebellion, self-discovery, and belonging. But enough from me, I think people will be really interested in how you as the poet would describe the collection and who you think the audience is for it.
Such a great question. So I think you're right. I think that the poems in this collection are mostly about belonging and fitting in and sort of finding your place in the world. And many of the poems sort of focus on connection and human relationships and how we connect or how we fail to connect. And I think those themes probably resonate with, you know, quite a wide audience. My work was, I think, sarcastically once referred to as relatable and accessible, which I think for some poets is a dirty word, accessible. But I think that primarily I'm a storyteller, and what I want to do is take events and feelings and emotions and stages of life and sort of articulate them on the page and make it so that people can relate to the poems. What I think I want to say in this collection is if you feel this way, whatever way that is, then you're not alone, and that there is hope, and even in really difficult situations, there's something that you can take from that. So what I really want the poems to say is I feel that way too.
Yeah, I think they definitely do that. To give us a feel, could you perhaps read us one now, please?
Sure. So this one is a poem that's about defining your sense of self, and it's based on finding goth music and goth subculture as a teenager, and it's called On Becoming. Today, I am black lipstick, willful, disobedient. I am oil slick grin, thick black outline. I am bird's wing. I am beast's flank. I am opaque, and I am limitless. Today I am black lipstick, headstrong, intractable. I am burning meteorite, collapsing supernova. I am wet mouth. I am echoing ventricle. I am magnetic, and I am outrageous. Today I am black lipstick, deliberate, considered. I am ocean floor and space between stars. I am lip taste. I am skin shine. I am equilibrium, and I am disparity. Today I am black lipstick, transgressive, unflinching. I am incautious uncertainty, trepidation, but not fear. I am experimentation. I am complication. I am confidence, and I am indecision. I am not beautiful, but I am powerful. I am powerful, and that is beautiful. Today I am black lipstick, and that is enough.
Wow. Thank you, Leanne. That was wonderful. Like that one, some of the poems in this collection look back on your teenage years, and they do, and that one shows it, really get across those mix of feelings, the self-love, the self-doubt at the same time, that journey of discovery. Tell me what made you want to write about that?
It's a really good question, and it's something that I can't quite put my finger on. I think that certainly myself as a poet, I look back on the things that I've written and I find common themes. And for me, over the last sort of 5 years or so, the common themes have been looking back at my teenage years and thinking about how I've become the person that I've become at 30 odd. I'm not going to tell you what my real age is, but yeah, part of the inspiration, and certainly the inspiration for some of the poems in the collection, is that I was writing a piece of theatre called Skip Skip Skip, which is about a semi-autobiographical piece of writing about me as a teenager growing up in rural Norfolk, and using music and using goth subculture to become the person that I am now, and how music is another one of these really important art forms that helps us to discover our own emotions and discover our own sense of self. So there's also quite an interesting theme of music being not a saviour, but a driving force in certainly in my life, and I think in a lot of people's lives throughout the collection as well.
Yeah, I have to say that really resonated with me, particularly looking back on teenage years, all those years ago. But there's also, as well as the music, which is really strong, there's also in quite a lot of the poems a real strong sense of place and belonging. So that must be something that's important to you as well.
Yeah, it is, and it's increasingly more important. And I think one of the reasons that it's important is because growing up in a very small rural market town, I didn't feel like I did belong there. So it feels like it's been a process of understanding that, and understanding place in terms of where I fit in the world. And I think there's something really interesting about leaving your hometown and the memories and the emotions and the feelings that stirs up, and also the idea of creating your own sort of new hometown. And for me, I think Nottingham really fits the bill. I feel more at home here than I do where I grew up. And I think that that's a really interesting thing to explore, that idea about sort of making your own space. And it also ties into the idea of making your own family and your friendship groups, and how you find that support network and find that community.
Yeah, definitely. I think that will resonate with so many readers. I mean, it's lovely reading your work on the page for me, because I know you most as a performance poet. Obviously with your work with Paper Crane at Beeston Library, and just your general work for your spoken word nights that you do. But so how has it differed producing a collection for the page? Were some written especially for the page? Is it a mix? And how is it different?
It certainly is. Yeah, it feels slightly different, I have to say. I'm not necessarily enamored with the idea that page poetry and poetry for performance are completely different things. I think that there's a real spectrum, and a poem can be anywhere on that line. For me, yes, you're right, I mostly write to perform, but I was really lucky. My publisher, Burning Eye Books, they specialise in poetry that is spoken word, performance poetry, stand-up poetry. So it's poetry that has that thread of being able to be performed live. But you are right in that you do have to consider that some poems that work out loud perhaps don't look or don't feel right on the page. So I had a wonderful editor, Anne Holloway, who runs Big White Shed, which is a local Nottingham publishing house. And she was instrumental in helping me to reframe some of the poems that I tend to perform a lot, and making them sort of feel right on the page. There are also some poems that work better on the page. There's a poem that I've written called Canal Street, and that is a type of poetry called a sestina, which is basically, I don't want to bore you with poetry forms, but it's basically the end words in each verse are all the same, but in a different order. So it's kind of like writing one is like unlocking a puzzle. But then when you read it aloud, the whole sort of look of seeing that is completely lost. So it's really nice to have that on the page so that you can see the sort of hard work and graft that was put into
it. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always admire performance poets, you know, that it must be daunting to go out and present your work straight to an audience, you know, but it's also immediately rewarding. Is it the difference in actually sending out this book? Is it more or less daunting? Is it more or less rewarding?
Yes, so you're right. When you go and do poems on stage, you do get that instant sort of feedback. You get a real sense from the audience as to whether they're enjoying them or not. And that can be really helpful if you're putting new poems out into the world and you want to see how they land. Being able to go to an open mic and go, this is new, what do you think, is really, really helpful. But yes, taking everything into a book and just sending it out to people and then not knowing what they think of it is has been really strange for me personally. But it's also been sort of even more lovely when somebody takes the time to then send me a message and say, I really enjoyed this collection, this is the poem that spoke to me. So yeah, it's very different, but yeah, equally lovely in different ways, I think.
Good. Before we move on to talking about other things, with this book, I'd like to just talk a little bit about how the poems, they often take what might seem very ordinary scenes from the past, but the way that you write and what you see in them makes them remarkable and gives them a bigger meaning. You know, it made me remember things from my teenage years in a similar way. Your mother in a gateway uniform in the Yellow Ward kitchen, and you know, the trip to the corner shop for the vodka, but you're kings in a kingdom. It's a really remarkable way of looking at things. Is that something that comes naturally?
Yes and no. I think that when I started writing poetry, I wanted to write about my own experiences, because I think that it's really important for everyone who's writing to realise and to understand that every experience that we have is valuable and can be art. I'm not of the opinion that you can only write about, you know, like lofty Greek myths in order to be a poet. I think everything has got that potential to be beautiful and to be magical. And yeah, I also think that one of the joys of poetry is that you can take something that is such a specific memory to you. For example, my mum working night shifts at a supermarket at Gateway when I was little, and how that felt feels like such a specific memory to me. But in writing about it, you connect with the universal experience of class and what our parents did for work and how that made us feel, and being a child and how we sort of move through the world. So I think that it's about finding that magic and finding that unusual metaphor or story or image that sort of unlocks the feelings and the emotions. That's really the most rewarding part of writing for me.
Yeah, it's very rewarding to read it. Magical. Yeah, that's such a good word to describe it. Could you perhaps read us one more from the collection?
Sure. I will read that poem because I really like it. not to toot my own horn, but it's a poem called Poison, and it's after David Allen Evans. Every time I smell that perfume, it is 1996. My mother is seated at the scuffed wooden table in our yellow walled kitchen, her striped gateway uniform pulled up around her collar, where she sprays the perfume just a little onto the skin behind her ears. Then she goes out into the dark to stack tins and cut ready meals free from plastic pallets. The tins and ready meals that pass into the hands of early morning shoppers who have no clue how they got there. But my mother is not tins and ready meals and box cutters and the stripes of the gateway uniform. She is the yellow-walled kitchen and the scuffed kitchen table and the hint of Dior clinging to the skin behind her ears.
Thank you. I love that. I really do. It really resonates with me. There we go. No, really, really, congratulations. I've read it a few times now. I mean, I think that's a wonderful thing about a poetry collection. You can keep dipping in and out as well, which is lovely. And you know, it's been on my bedside table. And we will post on the webpage about how people can buy this and your first collection, Liaisons. Moving on a little, I read in an interview a while ago that you've been surprised to find that people like you, when you started out, were allowed to write poetry. Can you tell us about how you started, why you felt that, and if it's changed now, particularly with the new book?
Yeah, I did feel like that when I started out. So for me, poetry was a bit of a dirty little secret for a long time, because all the poetry that we read at school was, you know, old, dead white men, like your Shakespeare, your Keats, and it felt like very far away from the experiences that I had growing up, you know, in a rural market town, coming from sort of a working class background and sort of not having any experience of anyone in my family working in the arts at all. And I didn't study English or poetry or anything at university. So I think that for me, it felt like it was something that other people did. And the fact that I was writing was just something that was a hobby and that I didn't really understand how to take further. One of the nicest things that somebody has ever done for me is a friend of mine took me to my first poetry open mic night in Norwich, actually, which is about 70 miles away from my hometown, but one of the nearest places that was doing poetry open mics back in 2010. And that suddenly opened up this huge world for me in terms of there being people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all ages, and all different, you know, places and different experiences, all getting up and sharing their work. And the work was sort of stunning in its variety. And I thought to myself, maybe this is something that I can do. And it was finding that community. Again, it's a case of finding your place and finding the people who want the same things as you, and the people who are supportive and will help you and will accept help from you. And it's about that rising tide lifting all ships, I think. So that was really lovely for me. In terms of your part of the question about whether that's changed, I hope that it has. I can't speak for anybody sort of starting out as a young person wanting to write now, but certainly it feels like there's been a shift over the last couple of years in terms of Instagram poetry being really popular, in terms of YouTube channels that only produce poetry videos being really popular, and this feeling like poetry is the new rock and roll, which is really lovely. Having done it for the past 10 years and been a poet on and off during that time, I'm not certain if this is just the crest of a wave and then everybody will go, actually, no, poetry. And then we'll be back to, you know, it being a niche topic and something that, you know, not everybody is interested in. But for now, it definitely feels like it's something that is on the up, which is lovely.
Yeah, that's how that continues. And I think you are doing everything you can to make sure that happens. I mean, you do a great deal of work that's about nurturing other writers. You do workshops in normal life, but you also do, you know, you're doing a lot of virtual workshops now. Indeed, you run our own Paper Crane Poetry Collective at Beeston, which is for people that was new to poetry. Could you tell me a little bit about Paper Crane and actually, like, because like I said, you met at Beeston Library, what you've been doing during lockdown?
Sure. So I really think that it's important as a poet and a writer to support people, you know, just starting their journey on poetry, sort of helping emerging artists to develop their craft. Because I remember loads of brilliant older poets helping me when I was just starting out, and I think it's really important to pay that forward where you can and use your skills to support people where you can as well. In terms of Paper Cranes, we started in May 2019. And the idea was that we wanted to put together a group of writers who could meet, who could talk about poetry, who could support each other to achieve what they wanted to achieve in terms of poetry, and whether that is writing for pleasure or whether that is taking their writing to like a level at which they can earn money from it and make it into a career. So we've got a real cross section of all different writers who are who have different ambitions and who have different goals in terms of what they want to do with their writing. And what we do is we meet twice a month, and we before lockdown we met twice a month at Beeston Library, and share work and do workshop activities and exercises together, and we support each other to attend open mics, and it's really like it's been lovely to sort of build up that community, and it's myself and another Beeston poet, Chris McLaughlin, who sort of run those, and it's been just a wonderful experience. Since March, we have been doing our workshops online on Zoom, and that's been really lovely as well. It's been nice to check in with people. It's been nice to have that space to write and process what's been going on in the last 6 months, or if people prefer to have a chance to sort of escape that and to write about other things and to get away from perhaps the stresses and strains of life. I'm a really big advocate of creativity as a way to support your mental health and to give you an outlet to understand your own feelings. So we've been really lucky with Paper Cranes that we've been able to keep meeting virtually, and that's something that I hope we can continue in some form, even if we get back to being in person as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love Paper Crane. The collective did a showcase for the Inspire Poetry Festival last year, and it was such a wonderful event. It was fantastic. So yeah, I'm really glad that you're carrying on meeting. And talking of your virtual workshops, we're hoping that you may be doing one for this year's virtual Inspire Poetry Festival, which we'll be releasing details about soon. So thank you for that. That's exciting. As it has been a learning curve, hasn't it, all this moving to virtual, but I think you're really finding it very rewarding and keeping it going.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it has been a real learning curve, and I'd be the first to admit that I'm not the best in terms of technology. So that's been fun to navigate the world of online Eventbrite and all these different apps and things that allow you to do stuff in the digital space. But I think I've been really fortunate to be able to, as a freelance creative person, to have that impetus to just go out and do things. So as I mentioned, a lot of my work, particularly workshop work and community group work, was cancelled, sort of certainly March, April, May, June. But that left space in my sort of calendar to do or to try new things and try like innovative ways of being creative. So I put together a little project where I would ask people to send me a prompt and I would write them a bespoke poem. And we called it Hopeful Poetry. And that was really lovely because it gave me the chance to write poems for people's birthdays and for wedding anniversaries, and to just keep writing throughout the sort of first few months of the crisis. I've also been really fortunate to be able to put on creative writing workshops, again on Zoom, and have people sort of come and again have that space to write and think and feel like they're not alone, even if they've been stuck in their house for like 4 months or something. So I think that again it's about creativity being a pathway to helping people find that sense of community, and I that's what I think a lot of my work comes back to.
Yeah, fantastic. But are you looking forward to getting back to live gigs whenever we can? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think that it probably won't happen this year. I'm conscious that certainly events are likely to be the very last thing that comes back after all this is over. But I think that certainly for me, while I really love working digitally and in the online space and being able to share my work over social media and over video links like this, I think there's something special for me personally about being in a room with sort of 50 other people who are all listening to one person sort of speaking some poetry. There's something quite lovely about that. And even though I think it's really important that when things do go back to some semblance of normality, I think it's really important for us to continue with the digital side, because I think we've realised that it is doable and that it does open the doors for people who perhaps can't get out to live events or can't come to things in person. So I think it's now the arts is in a position where we've got this opportunity to think about how we integrate those two sides of things going forward. And that for me feels like a really exciting question to consider and to think about answering.
Yeah, definitely. But roll on the day. Sadly, we're always out of time. But at the end of these chats, we do always like to ask our writers if they have any recommendations of what people could read. So do you have a couple of poetry recommendations for us?
I do. So my first one is a poetry collection by Roger Robinson, and it's called A Portable Paradise. And it is an incredible collection. It recently won the T.S. Eliot Prize, and it's about family and humanity and Roger talks a lot about what it means to be Black and British in the UK today. He touches on things like police brutality and Grenfell, and just how one navigates through the world as a Black person. And I think even though the collection was published, I think at the tail end of last year, it couldn't be more timely. And it's just a brilliant piece of work, and I'd recommend it to anyone. And my second choice is called Happiness FM by Mary Dickens, and this is just the absolute tonic for if you're feeling a little bit down. Mary is hilarious. Her poems are wonderful and funny and witty and wry, and they sort of poke fun at the ridiculousness of modern life. And it's a really fun collection. So yeah, one serious one and one sort of light-hearted one for you in terms of.
I like that. Yeah, thank you very much. So before we go, I do think it would be nice if we could end with a poem, if that's okay. And I was thinking the final poem in the collection, it's so much about hope, and I think it's very apt for now and very apt for some of the things we're talking about. So could you read that for us, Leanne? Thank you.
Yeah, it's called Shatterproof. Hope is a patch of sky reflected through shatterproof glass. Time sunk into wet concrete, and countless locks clicked closed between then and now. Worlds shrink to the size of a cell. Days measured in sun across sky, shadows thrown against brick walls. Radio programs, visiting hours, the smell of other men. Time shifts, slips through the silent hours like moonlight through barbed wire, until it's time to start again, renew, reflect, embrace the day. It is so easy to ruminate on emptiness in these crowded places where iron bars creak cold lullabies and bleach stink stings like thoughts of home. But remember, no matter how long it takes, there is still a spark of hope, a patch of sky reflected through shatterproof glass. The scent of fresh air, a distant open door.